Alright, who's ready for some pine tree tea? Pine needle tea, I mean. Now those branches were easy to get to. That's what you want idealistically, but a lot of times they're going to be out of reach and it might involve some climbing. And as you can see by that 30-foot street light, these trees get incredibly tall. I said tea, and that's what we're gonna make. Okay, now before you consider making pine needle tea, you need to understand that certain species of spruce can be misidentified as a pine, and if you make tea out of this, it could be potentially toxic and poisonous. So you need to understand the difference between a spruce and a pine tree. So if you see, the spruce has a different kind of berry. That is not a pine cone. Alright, and we got a little cluster here looking just like pine trees until you get up close and then you realize, wait, that's not a pine needle. So see, there's the berries. This is one example. There are many species of spruce, there are many species of evergreens and pines. Okay, that's another example not to be confused with pine. Alright, this has flowers growing out of it. Looks like bird feathers. And they get to be just as tall. Actually, that's because that's a pine tree right there. Look at that big old pine tree. Alright, see, that's an example of what I'm talking about. You ready to climb that tree right there? Dun, 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 dun. Climb a tree and make some tea. I mean, these trees are towering above the telephone poles, or whatever you would call them now, power lines, I guess. Anyways, in fact, I believe that's where the utility poles come from, pine trees or evergreens. But you see how there aren't any branches on that? So if I want to climb that one in particular, I'm going to need a good 50-foot piece of cordage. Throw it around that branch up there with a nice toggle or a slip knot, noose, or whatever you would call that. And then climb up there, and then climb out onto that limb. Talk about climbing out on a limb. You have to climb all the way out there, grab a handful of branches, drop them down, and then slide down the very narrow piece of cordage. Does that sound like something you really want to do? Okay, let's just time out for a second and talk about cordage then. You need to look closely at the weight maximum of your cordage, because your average cordage is only going to hold about 110 pounds. I weigh a little bit more than that. So that would probably snap the wire about 20 feet up. Ah, that's gonna hurt when I land. Some cordage only hold about 50 pounds of weight. This one happens to be 160. That's about my body weight right there.